my mother-in-law smiled at my wedding. She had been trying to end my marriage since day one. I want to start with the image I've never been able to shake. My wedding day, September 14th, 2019. A venue outside of Nashville, Tennessee. 73 guests. White roses everywhere, because I'd always wanted white roses. The kind of afternoon light that makes everything look like it's been filtered through something golden. And my mother-in-law, Patricia, standing at the edge of the reception, watching me dance with my husband. Smiling. It was a beautiful smile, warm, proud. The smile of a woman who was happy for her son. That's what I thought it was. I have a photo from that moment. A guest caught it without either of us knowing, me laughing with my head thrown back, my husband's hand on my waist, and Patricia in the background, watching us with that smile. I looked at that photo 100 times in the first year of our marriage. I thought it was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. I know now what that smile actually was. My name is Claire. I'm 36 years old. I live in Nashville, and what I'm about to tell you is the story of 5 years of a war I didn't know I was in, and the moment my husband finally chose which side he was on. If you've ever had a mother-in-law who smiled to your face and worked against you behind your back, like and subscribe, because this one is going to feel very familiar. Let's go. Let me tell you about Patricia Webb. 62 years old, retired school principal, lives in a beautiful house in Brentwood, Tennessee, 20 minutes from where my husband Daniel and I bought our first home. Active in her church, president of her neighborhood association. The kind of woman who brings homemade casseroles to new neighbors and remembers everyone's birthday and volunteers at 3 different charities. From the outside, Patricia was the dream mother-in-law. Warm, involved, generous. She had opinions, yes, strong ones, but she delivered them with such practiced sweetness that they were hard to identify as what they actually were. Control, dressed up as love. I didn't see that clearly for a long time. I wanted to see a mother who loved her son and was learning to make room for me. That's a generous interpretation. It was also completely wrong. I met Daniel at a mutual friend's birthday party in the spring of 2017. He was 31, a project engineer at a construction firm, quiet in a way that felt considered rather than shy. We dated for 18 months before he proposed, and in those 18 months, I had met Patricia perhaps a dozen times. Holidays, family dinners, a weekend trip to the lake house. She was lovely to me in that period. Attentive, interested, inclusive. She asked me questions about my work. I'm a graphic designer, freelance, and remembered the answers. She sent me a birthday card 3 months into my relationship with Daniel, which I thought was endearing. I told my mother, I think I really like his mom. My mother, who has excellent instincts, said, give it time. The shift happened gradually after the engagement. Not dramatically. Patricia was too skilled for drama. It was slower than that. A comment here, a suggestion there, a story told at the wrong moment, a piece of information shared with Daniel that I hadn't known she had. By the time I understood what was happening, it had been happening for years. Drop in the comments if you've ever had someone in your life who was perfectly nice to your face. Because what Patricia was doing behind mine, I wasn't ready for it. The first thing I noticed was the wedge. Not a dramatic wedge, a subtle one, the kind that works by accumulation rather than single incident. Patricia had a gift for getting to Daniel first, before I could tell him about a difficult day at work. Patricia had already called to tell him I seemed stressed and she was worried. Before I could raise a concern about our finances, Patricia had already mentioned to Daniel that she'd heard we were having some trouble. She was always happy to help, of course. I don't know where she got her information. Daniel talked to his mother frequently, daily, sometimes, and I suspect he shared more than he realized. Patricia was good at asking questions that seemed like concern and function like intelligence gathering. By year 2 of our marriage, I had developed a specific anxiety about what Daniel might have told his mother. Not because I had anything to hide, but because I had learned that anything I shared with my husband had the potential to arrive back to me through Patricia, slightly distorted, in a context I hadn't chosen. That anxiety is not a small thing to carry in a marriage. It creates distance. It makes you careful in ways that erode intimacy. And the person responsible for creating it gets to watch the erosion happen from a safe distance, hands clean, smiling at family dinners. Year 3. We were trying to have a baby. It was not going easily. Nothing dramatic, just the slow, difficult reality of it not happening on the timeline we'd hoped. We hadn't told anyone. It was private, tender, the kind of thing you protect carefully. Patricia mentioned it at Easter dinner, casually, in front of 8 family members. I know you two have been going through some fertility challenges. I just want you to know we're all praying for you. Daniel went pale. I went very still. After dinner, alone in the car, I asked him if he had told his mother. He said he might have mentioned something during one of their calls. He said he hadn't thought she'd bring it up. He said he was sorry. I believed him. I also understood something I hadn't fully articulated before. Patricia was not accidentally causing harm. She was doing it with precision. But here's what I didn't know yet. The fertility announcement was not the worst thing she had done. Not even close. Stay with me, because what I found out in year 4 changed everything. In the spring of year 4 of our marriage, Daniel started working late. Not dramatically late, an hour here, an hour there. He seemed distracted in the evenings, slightly elsewhere. I noticed it, the way you notice a change in weather before you can name what's shifting. Something was different. I didn't know what. In April, Patricia invited us both to a dinner at her house. A small gathering, her, us, and 2 other couples, one of whom I had never met. Her name was Vanessa. 32 years old, recently divorced, a real estate agent who had grown up in the same neighborhood as Daniel. She was beautiful in the easy, unself-conscious way of someone who has always been beautiful. She and Daniel had known each other as teenagers. She mentioned this within the first 10 minutes, laughing, touching his arm. Patricia had seated them next to each other. I watched the dinner with a specific kind of alertness I had never felt before. Not jealousy exactly, something more clinical. I was watching Patricia watch Daniel and Vanessa. The way she facilitated their conversation. The way she refilled Vanessa's wine while barely glancing at mine. The way she brought up old memories that included Vanessa and excluded me. On the drive home, I asked Daniel how well he knew Vanessa. He said they'd been close in high school, that they hadn't been in touch much since, that it was nice to catch up. I said, "Your mother planned that." He said I was reading too much into it. Over the next 6 weeks, I found out that I was not reading too much into it. I found out because Daniel's younger sister, Mara, who had always been quietly uncomfortable with her mother's behavior, called me one afternoon and said, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to know I've been trying to figure out how to say it for months." What Mara told me: Patricia had been in contact with Vanessa for over a year. She had engineered the reconnection deliberately, reaching out to Vanessa under the pretense of catching up, learning that Vanessa was newly divorced, and then slowly, carefully creating opportunities for her and Daniel to be in the same room. The dinner was not the first of these. There had been 2 other encounters Patricia had arranged: a neighborhood event Daniel had attended without me, a chance meeting at Patricia's church that had apparently been neither chance nor accidental. I sat on my kitchen floor after Mara's call for a long time. Pepper, our golden retriever, put his head in my lap. I held on to him. Then I thought about the photo from my wedding. Patricia's smile, and I understood it differently for the first time. Type shocked in the comments if you didn't see this coming, because honestly, neither did I. I did not confront Daniel immediately. I needed to think. I spent 3 days processing what Mara had told me. I thought about what it meant for my marriage, not just Patricia's actions, but Daniel's. He had been in proximity to his mother's plan. How much had he known? How much had he allowed? Had he pursued the reconnection with Vanessa, or had he been as manipulated as I was? I didn't know, and I needed to know before I did anything else. On a Thursday evening, I sat Daniel down at our kitchen table. I told him what Mara had told me. I laid it out as plainly and as calmly as I could: the timeline, the engineered encounters, the deliberate campaign his mother had been running. I watched his face as I spoke. What I saw was not guilt. It was something more complicated. The specific expression of someone receiving information that is rearranging things they thought they understood. Pieces falling into place. A picture becoming clear that had previously been blurred. "The neighborhood event," he said quietly when I finished. "She told me you'd said you didn't want to come, that you were tired." I had never said that. I hadn't known about the event. "The church thing," he continued. "She said she'd mentioned it to both of us, and you'd had a work conflict." I had never been told about the church event. Daniel sat back in his chair. He looked at the table. He was quiet for a long time. "I didn't pursue anything with Vanessa," he said finally. "I want you to know that, but I think I let my mother tell me what was happening in my own house, and I believed her over you. And I don't have a good explanation for why." That was the most honest thing he had said to me in years, and it was the thing I had needed to hear most. We talked for 4 hours that night. About Patricia. About the pattern of the last 5 years. The information asymmetry, the wedge, the fertility announcement, the engineered encounters. About how much of our distance had been manufactured by a woman who smiled at our wedding while planning its ending. At the end of those 4 hours, Daniel said, "What do you need from me?" I said, "I need you to choose." He didn't hesitate. "I choose us," he said. "I've always chosen us. I just didn't know I was being asked to." Don't go anywhere, because what happened with Patricia next, that's where the story becomes something else entirely. We did not call Patricia that night. We took a week. In that week, Daniel and I did something we had not done enough of in 5 years of marriage. We talked, really talked, about patterns we'd both been in, about how much space Patricia had occupied in our relationship without either of us fully naming it, about the ways Daniel had been shaped by his need to not disappoint his mother, and the ways I had been shaped by my need to not cause conflict. We also talked to Mara, who had known pieces of this for years and had carried the weight of that knowledge alone. She was relieved in the exhausted way of someone who has been holding something too heavy for too long. On a Saturday morning in October, Daniel called his mother and asked her to come over. She arrived at 11, wearing a blue cardigan, carrying a container of cookies she had baked, smiling. We sat in the living room. Daniel and I on the couch, Patricia in the armchair across from us. Pepper stationed himself between us on the rug, which felt appropriate. Daniel spoke first. He was calm and direct in a way I had never heard him be with his mother before. He told her what we knew. The contact with Vanessa, the engineered encounters, the information she had withheld, and the information she had distorted. The fertility announcement, the years of quiet interference. Patricia's face went through several expressions in quick succession. Surprise, performed. Concern, also performed. And then, when she realized Daniel was not going to stop or soften, something colder and more real underneath. "I've only ever wanted what's best for you," she said. "I know you believe that," Daniel said. "But what you've been doing has not been what's best for me. It's been what you decided was best for me. Those aren't the same thing." She tried several approaches over the next 40 minutes. "The wounded mother. After everything I've done." The concerned observer. "I've just been worried about whether Claire is really right for your life." The minimizer. "You're making this into something much bigger than it is." Daniel didn't move. Not once. He acknowledged each thing she said and returned to the same point. This behavior was not acceptable, and it needed to stop. I said very little. I didn't need to. This was Daniel's conversation to have with his mother. What I needed was to watch him have it, and he did not disappoint. At the end of it, Patricia stood up. She looked at me, a long, direct look that was nothing like the smile from my wedding photo. "I hope you're happy," she said. "I am," I said. For the first time in a while, actually. She left without the cookie container. Type yes if you would have said the same thing. Patricia did not speak to Daniel for 6 weeks after that Saturday. In those 6 weeks, Daniel and I went to couples therapy. Not because our marriage was broken. It wasn't. But because we had both developed patterns that needed examining, and we wanted to do that work properly, rather than assuming love was sufficient without the tools to use it well. Our therapist, a woman named Dr. Sandra Okafor, who had 30 years of experience with exactly this kind of family dynamic, said something in our third session that I have thought about many times since. The most effective controllers are the ones who make you feel loved while they're doing it. That's what makes it so hard to name. 6 weeks after the confrontation, Patricia reached out to Daniel. She wanted to talk. He agreed, on the condition that I was present. That conversation was different from the first one. Patricia was not performing this time. She was smaller, more careful. She did not apologize in the full sense of the word. She said she was sorry that her actions had been misread, which is the apology of someone who is not yet ready to fully own what they did. But she also said something that surprised me. "I was afraid of losing him," she said, looking at her hands. "When Daniel got serious about you, I was afraid. He's all I have since his father left. I didn't handle that fear well." It was the most honest thing Patricia had ever said in my presence. It didn't excuse 5 years of calculated interference, but it made her human in a way that the performing version of her never had been. I didn't forgive her that day. Forgiveness isn't a switch, but I acknowledged what she'd said, and I told her that what I wanted, what Daniel and I both wanted, was a relationship built on honesty rather than management. That the door was open if she could walk through it differently. She nodded. She didn't cry. I respected that. The relationship with Patricia now is careful and deliberate. We see her for holidays and occasional dinners. Daniel manages the communication. He is present in a way he wasn't before, attentive to dynamics he used to miss. There have been moments of backsliding, small ones, where old patterns surface and have to be named. We name them now. That's the difference. Is it perfect? No. But it's real. And real, I have learned, is worth more than performed warmth every time. There is something I want to say to anyone watching this who is in the early stages of what I went through. Trust your instincts, not just about the person, about the dynamic. When something in a relationship feels off, but you can't point to a single incident that proves it, when you find yourself second-guessing your own perceptions because the person causing harm is so consistently nice in every observable way, that feeling is not paranoia. That feeling is information. Your nervous system is detecting a pattern that your conscious mind hasn't fully assembled yet. I spent years telling myself I was being unfair to Patricia, that I was too sensitive, too suspicious, too quick to see malice in behavior that might be thoughtlessness. And every time I talked myself out of my own instincts, Patricia got another year to work. I also want to say something about Daniel because his part of the story matters. Daniel is not a villain. He is a man who loved his mother and was trained from childhood to trust her version of events. That training made him susceptible to manipulation in ways he genuinely didn't see. When the picture became clear to him, he chose correctly and did the work to understand how he'd gotten there. That's not nothing. That's actually everything. Not every story like this ends the way mine did. Some partners choose the parent. Some never fully see the pattern. I know how lucky I am that Daniel, when confronted with the truth, looked at it clearly and made the right call. If you're in a version of this and your partner is still defending the behavior, still minimizing, still choosing their parent's narrative over the evidence in front of them, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I will tell you. You deserve a partner who chooses you. Not eventually. Now. The smile in that wedding photo still exists. I haven't deleted the photo, but I see it differently now. I see a woman who was afraid and chose the wrong response to her fear, and a marriage that was strong enough to survive what she built against it. That marriage is mine, and it belongs to Daniel and me, not to anyone standing in the background, smiling at things they were trying to end. It's March now. 5.5 years of marriage. Daniel and I had our daughter, Rosie, 14 months ago. She has his eyes and my stubbornness and an opinion about everything, which she expresses at maximum volume. Patricia has met Rosie 7 times. She is gentle with her, careful. There is something in how she holds her granddaughter that looks genuinely like the love I thought I was seeing at my wedding. Unperformed, unstrategic, just real. I watch her with Rosie, and I think, this is who you could have been with me from the beginning if you hadn't been so afraid. It makes me sad sometimes. Not angry, sad. For the years we lost to the version of Patricia that was managing rather than loving. For the distance it created between Daniel and me before we named it. For Mara, who carried the secret for too long and still carries some guilt about not speaking sooner. But mostly, I think about what we have now. The Thursday nights when Daniel and I sit on the back porch after Rosie is asleep and talk about nothing important for an hour. The way he reaches for my hand now in situations where he used to reach for his phone to call his mother. The specific piece of a marriage that has been through something difficult and come out with its eyes open. Dr. Okafor told us in one of our last sessions, the goal isn't a marriage with no interference. The goal is a marriage where both people are paying attention. We are paying attention now. That's enough. Actually, it's everything. If this story resonated with you, if you recognize something in Patricia or in Daniel or in the version of me who kept telling herself she was being unfair, leave me a comment. Tell me where you are in your story. And if someone in your life needs to hear this, that their instincts are valid, that they deserve a partner who pays attention, share this video with them. Subscribe for new stories every week. I'll see you next time.